One of the themes of the tribulation period is the Antichrist blasphemy in the temple. And Tom, it says, when you see that abomination of desolation, the Lord warned Israel, then flee into the hills of Judea, into the wilderness. And people have associated Petra with this fleeing, especially because of Revelation 12:6. And the woman, Israel in Revelation, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,203 score days, 1,260 days, which is a half tribulation period. So when he blasphemes in the middle of it, they have that much time left.
And the woman is obviously Israel. She is the one who brought forth the man-child who will rule the world with a rod of iron, as the passage says. Yeah. But the Antichrist hates the woman, Israel, and wants to persecute Israel out of existence. And so God has a way of escape for Israel during the tribulation, and has a place prepared for the fleeing Israelites during the tribulation in the wilderness.
But why do they say Petra?
Well, and that's the question, because where in the wilderness is this? And we don't know for sure. But there are suggestions in other passages in the Bible, particularly in Isaiah, that speak of a place in Edom or in Bozrah where the Lord is going to make his appearance in the second coming.
Now that passage is Isaiah 63:1. Who is this that cometh from Edom with dyed garments from Bozrah? That this is glorious in his apparel, traveling in the greatness of his strength. It sounds like the Messiah.
Isaiah asks, who is this? And I think you're right. I believe it is the Messiah. It's a great messianic prophecy. But the strange thing is, it speaks of the Messiah coming from the south, from Edom and from Bozrah, and that section across Jordan. What is the Messiah doing down there? And why are his garments dyed with red, bloody, and so forth? And we usually think in terms of Christ returning at Armageddon, in Jerusalem, the Mount of Olives, and areas like that. But here, Isaiah speaks of him coming out of Edom and Bozrah. What's he doing down there? So many have suggested that that is the place that the Lord has prepared for Israel in the tribulation, and that they will flee there when Satan and the Antichrist are going after them in such a vicious way during the tribulation. And that when he comes, he will rescue them out of that situation.
The theologian W.E. Blackstone was totally convinced of that.
He was a great theologian around the turn of the century, last century, and he probably helped more Christians become premillennialists and believe in the future of Israel and the rapture of the church and all those wonderful teachings than any one person back at that time. Well, he so believed this, Zola, that he thought that Petra was the place where the Jewish people were going to be hiding during the time of the tribulation, that he packed up thousands of Hebrew New Testaments and carried them over to Petra and hid them in those great caves and monuments and statues and temples and so forth all over Petra, so that the Jewish people would have them during the time of the tribulation.
What a wonderful mission. And I've heard people are carrying on this particular mission.
Yes, and people have looked for these and haven't been able to find them. He must have hid them very good, or we don't know what's happened to those New Testaments, but they may be there at the appointed time for their appointed purpose.
Here in the rugged mountains of Seir lies the city of Petra. Located adjacent to a major ancient trade route, Petra hosted caravans from Mesopotamia, Persia, India, and China. The Nabateans, extracting taxes from the merchants delivering spices, precious stones, and rich fabrics, developed Petra into a wealthy metropolis. A winding gorge is the only entrance to the city because of the mountainous surroundings. This road between the rising brown sandstone hills leads to the entrance of the ravine. A magnificent burial chamber called the Obelisk tomb is located along the way. Believed to have been created in the 1st century BC, the lower part is a burial tomb. The 4 large obelisks above are thought to represent Nabatean gods. Running along the opposite side of the Seik, we see the broken remains of another ancient water system. This reddish clay water pipe was used by the Nabateans to transport drinking water from a nearby spring to the city. The Nabateans collected the water in a large cistern inside the city and distributed it throughout Petra. In addition to the watercourses, religious symbols were carved into the cavern walls as well. Numerous niches line the walls of the Sikh. One of the most prominent is this one, carved into a natural outcrop. Two gods are represented in the form of rectangular blocks. The large one on the left is the god of the city of Petra. The smaller block is the city's goddess. Chiseled into the rock above the area was the high priest's quarters. This was a temporary residence used by the priest while overseeing sacrificial rituals. The actual offerings were made on this flat stone altar at the base of the statues. Much like these gods, the city of Petra has often lain silent in history. In fact, following the expulsion of the Crusaders from the region in the 12th century, Petra's location was a mystery to the Western world. In the 1800s, Swiss explorer Johann Burckhardt rediscovered the city. Knowing the Arabs were suspicious of strangers and infidels, Burckhardt disguised himself as a Muslim scholar. Word of his find spread, and Petra was once again on the map. Today, visitors come by the thousands to view the impressive carved facades of the city and the magnificent gorge that acts as its entrance. Minerals in the sandstone give the pass its rich colors. Iron, especially abundant, is responsible for the rich red hues. Like their predecessors, Arab entrepreneurs use horses and horse-drawn carriages to escort people to and from the city. Taking a break from his duties, this young boy enjoys a backward joyride through the kingdom. Regardless of the viewpoint, the sights are extraordinary. It is the most striking of all the monuments of Petra. Its massive Corinthian-style columns, cut from the sedimentary rock, reveal a Greek or Hellenistic influence. Although referred to as the TREASURY, it most certainly was not. The confusion comes from an ancient myth that treasures from the Pharaoh of Egypt had been deposited here during the time of the Exodus. Some scholars theorize it was a royal tomb. A small cubicle inside is thought to have been the king's burial chamber. Other scholars conclude its facade is more in keeping with a temple, presuming the rear chamber was a sanctuary. Because of the lack of written records, dating the structure is equally difficult. Most likely it was created in the 1st century AD. Whether temple or tomb, it is certainly an awe-inspiring sight for all of those entering Petra.